All of you likely know, because you follow politics if you watch this show, that yesterday was Super Tuesday and that in essence Joe Biden won a lot of races. Keeping in mind, the first primary in his entire life he ever won, first presidential primary, was this past Saturday. But here we have Super Tuesday, and Joe Biden did very well. Of course, he won a lot of the southern states, and Bernie Sanders won other states, and they're still counting votes in California. Bernie Sanders will get a huge number of delegates out of California eventually. But I want to tell you some takeaways from yesterday's Super Tuesday that maybe didn't make the headlines, but I think actually matter more. First, before I forget, tomorrow, Thursday on this show, we'll have the Trump campaign chairman for the state of Texas, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, joining us to talk about the Trump strategy in Texas in 2020. But I want to start first about yesterday's Super Tuesday. Number one, I actually congratulate the Democrat primary voting base for a couple of things. One is they really rejected Bloomberg. Mayor Mike Bloomberg, or Mini Mike, as he was called by Trump, thought he could run a campaign in America by paying out millions and millions of his personal fortune to people to present him in campaign ads and television ad buys and internet ad buys. You saw his face everywhere. And the fact is, he didn't care enough about the American people, about the voters he had to persuade, to talk to them in person. He thought he was above it all, too arrogant, too full of himself, too confident that money equals power equals victory. So he ran a campaign all focused on Super Tuesday yesterday and won exactly one race in American Samoa. So he has dropped out. But I really do commend the Democrat voters for saying these are elections where you, candidates, you have to come talk to us. You tell us what you believe in. You let us get a sense of who you are. If the best you can do is spend some of your millions, it won't even make a dent in his personal fortune, to try to persuade us by putting your mug on air, no thank you. Second, congratulations to Democrat primary voters, was Elizabeth Warren having a very poor showing yesterday. Prior to Super Tuesday, she had said she thought that she would likely come in second in a majority of the Super Tuesday races. Instead, she even not only didn't win her home state of Massachusetts, didn't come in second in her home state of Massachusetts, came in third. She basically did very poorly yesterday, and she's now, for the first time, announcing this morning, thinking of pulling out of the race. So we're pretty much down to Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. But I want to talk to you about other great things that came out of Super Tuesday yesterday. Number one, even though there's no serious contender for the GOP primary, we had three people, I think it was, and it's down. I don't even know who's still in, but obviously President Trump is a GOP nominee for president again in 2020, meaning that in many places, there's really no reason to go vote, to show up. It's not like you're choosing between two viable candidates. But listen to the numbers Trump got yesterday in a primary where he didn't even have to be there. Number one, record-breaking vote counts all over the place. Vermont and Minnesota. Trump's vote totals, listen to this, Trump's vote totals beat every past incumbent's total in the last 4 decades. Last 4 decades. I have a point I'm making about this in just a moment. In Maine, the president's vote total bested every primary candidate's total since before President Ronald Reagan. In Massachusetts, story was similar. Trump aggregating a higher vote total than the past incumbent Republicans since before Reagan, even in deeply blue California. 82% of precincts reporting Trump got at least 1.4 million votes. The point is, Trump supporters showed up in blue states, in red states, in purple states. They showed up to support President Trump, to cast a vote for him, meaning that despite the left-wing effort to tell America that Trump is deeply unpopular, and the media people trying to tell you all the time that America is so embarrassed by the president, the simple fact is voters in America love Trump. Republican voters, they're grateful for him. Showing up on primary day to vote for him is a message. I support him. I support what he is doing. It also is a reflection of the numbers that we've reported periodically on this show about the number of people, the composition of people who come to Trump rallies. Many Trump rally people attending Trump rallies are people who never voted before, or who voted Democrat in 2016. So Trump on a roll. He was a great victor in yesterday's primaries, which I thought was a fabulous thing. And the other thing I want to report on relates to California. And I got to tell you, folks, these are really, really exciting things in California. So in the state of California, they have what they call jungle primaries. That basically means everyone who wants to run for some seat, whether it say it's president, everyone who wants to run shows up, puts their name in the ballot, and unlike in other states where we have primaries, where you have, for example, like in the great state of Texas, after our show yesterday, I went and worked at one of the voting locations because we had our voting here yesterday in Texas. You have to choose when you show up to vote in Texas. Do you want the Democrat primary ballot or the Republican primary ballot? That is true in virtually every state, except California. Maybe a few other exceptions, but I don't think so. In California, you get a bunch of people on the ballot, and everybody shows up, and everyone votes the ballot. You don't get to vote the Democrat or Republican ballot. So the end game is, the outcome of that is that when you have the vote tallies, quite often in major races, you have a Democrat who got the most votes, but if he or she didn't get 50%, then they have a runoff. But it's not a runoff between the two top vote getters of the Republican Party or the two top voters of the Democrat Party. It's just the two top vote getters in any primary. Meaning in California, so heavily Democratic, that mostly what happens is even when runoffs have to happen, all the voters have to choose from, because it's such a Democrat-heavy population, is two Democrats. And so, even if you showed up on election day and you were excited to vote in a primary for some Republican, most likely when it gets to the runoff, the two highest vote getters are two Democrats. It was something Democrats put in place to simply increasingly cement their power in California. But a great thing happened yesterday. Great thing. California has, if you didn't know, 54 congressional seats. You obviously, I believe, know that in the U.S. House of Representatives, the members of Congress, not the Senate, but the Congress, every person who serves there is up for re-election every 2 years. So it's everyone's in Congress is up for re-election. California has 54 congressional seats. And even with jungle primaries, their choice, their method to cement Democrat power in California, there are 9 Democrat seats currently held by a Democrat, where a Democrat sits in Washington representing that district. 9 Democratic seats can clearly be flipped by a Republican, meaning their jungle primary resulted in a Democrat and a Republican. Finally, in 9 different congressional seats, very likely, given all the math, that we could have 9 or up to 9 seats flipped from Democrat to Republican, and another Republican seat that appeared to be in jeopardy after yesterday appears not to be in jeopardy. All the details are in this article. I urge you to go to our website, americacanwetalk.org. On the homepage, under shows, the drop down says list of links. You can read this story. It could just make you smile, because in California, we may just have a Republican rebirth or re-energy. I don't want to go so far as saying that maybe we get Republican victory in the presidential race in 2020, but we have a resurgence of Republican power in California. Last thing I'll mention, before we turn to our guest, I want to mention that you hear so often on our show about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she is the first term representative of a district in New York. She's in Congress, and she is one of the squad. She is an outspoken Democrat socialist, radical, pushy, obnoxious, left-wing Democrat socialist. And she tried in this campaign cycle, she and her left-wing allies at Justice Democrats put up for nomination. They actually worked, a first-term Democrat member of Congress worked to put more left-wing, to put candidates on the ballot who are more left-wing than a sitting Democrat incumbent. She's primarying her own fellow members of Congress, primarying them, trying to take out the somewhat sane Democrats and get someone in those seats as radical as she is, and big fat flop. AOC's efforts on Super Tuesday yesterday to primary her own party members with more radical left-wing socialists like she is. Big, fat flop. Gotta love that. There's other great news out of the yesterday's, but it was a great day for Republicans, a great day in the primaries for President Trump, a great day to see the Democrats really coming down to two candidates. As my good friend put it, you can have either the socialist or the senile, and I don't really like calling Joe Biden that because I don't wish the decline of mental faculty on anyone. But he's not doing well mentally. He continues to make mistakes. On the stage, he talked the day before Super Tuesday about urging people to show up on Super Thursday. And he also got confused on stage between his sister and his wife. But hey, beside that, he's the rising star now. All the odd makers have changed their ideas about who's going to win the Democrat primary. But I think the one takeaway in wrapping up today's first five, the one takeaway I like the best out of yesterday's Super Tuesday is that there is tremendous energy on the Republican side, on the conservative side, to send a message to Washington, a message to America. We like the track we're on. We like what President Trump is doing. We're on track with him, and we're going to come out and vote for him, even when he's not challenged by anyone who could possibly beat him. And you have the Democrats now having to face their schizophrenia between, are they really the Democrat Party, the allegedly establishment party that Biden supposedly represents, or are they the Bernie Sanders radical leftists who, by the way, has a massive amount of support from young American voters? Democrat Party leaders, despite denials to the otherwise, they are wringing their hands over this one. And that, my friends, is today's first five.